World of Warcraft has been hiding a torture chamber from millions of players for 20 years. Every patch, every expansion, Blizzard kept that door sealed on something they never wanted found. Today, I'm breaking down 8 of WoW's most disturbing secrets, from hidden horrors to lore so dark it barely made it into the game, starting with the one they literally buried: the Upside Down Sinners. Beneath one of WoW's most iconic raids is a room Blizzard built, sealed off, and spent 20 years hoping players would never find. It took about 3 weeks for someone to get inside. Karajan is a famous 10-man raid added in the Burning Crusade, a tower full of ghosts, haunted chess pieces, and opera bosses. Standard WoW stuff. But buried directly beneath it, under Morgan's plot cemetery in Deadwind Pass, is a second dungeon, one Blizzard never intended you to see. Players noticed the entrance almost immediately. It looked like it should open. It didn't. So they started exploiting everything they could. Fear effects to push through walls, ghost running to clip through geometry. Over the years, players found at least 4 separate methods of breaking inside, and every time Blizzard patched one, the community found another. Because what's down there was worth it. The crypts descend through a series of increasingly disturbing rooms. Pauper's Walk comes first, a corridor with skeletons pressed into the walls, the destitute discarded in death. Then the Pit of Criminals, a massive bone pile at the lowest point suggesting large-scale executions. Then the Tomb of the Unrepentant, sarcophagi reserved for those who died without remorse. And then you hit the bottom. The Upside Down Sinners is a flooded chamber. Heavy chains hang from the ceiling deep into the dark water below. Human bodies are chained by their ankles, their wrists, their necks, bloated, floating feet first toward a surface they can never reach. The concept is deliberate. Sinners denied even the direction of heaven, with salvation literally above them, and zero way to get there. Blizzard built this, fully textured, fully lit, and then locked the door. Developer John Stotts confirmed in a 2018 Reddit AMA that the crypts were planned questing areas that were simply cut. A community manager addressed the long-running ESRB rating theory and landed on, "More likely, we just changed our minds." Which means somewhere in Blizzard, someone designed a flooded medieval torture chamber, nodded approvingly, and moved on to the next dungeon. But if you think the most disturbing thing in WoW is something Blizzard deliberately hid, wait until you hear about what they left completely out in the open, in the most peaceful starting zone in the entire game: the Children of Goldshire. 6 children walk out of a house in Goldshire every morning at exactly 7 a.m., and nobody can fully explain why. Elwyn Forest is the most beginner-friendly zone in the entire game. Rolling green hills, cobblestone roads, a cheerful little inn. It is where every new human character begins their journey in WoW. It is the single safest, brightest, most welcoming place Blizzard ever designed. And for 20 years, 6 children have been conducting what looks unmistakably like a satanic ritual inside it every single day. Their names are Cameron, Dana, Aaron, John, Jose, and Lisa. At 7 a.m. server time, they spawn outside a house near Goldshire's leatherworking trainers and begin walking. The formation they travel in is a pentagram, 5 of them surrounding Cameron in the center. They walk from Goldshire to the Valley of Heroes in Stormwind, back to Goldshire, up toward Northshire Abbey, then return to that second-floor room where they stand motionless in their pentagram pattern and wait for the next morning. Before you dismiss this as a weird coincidence, hear me out. Because when you follow them inside that room, the sounds start. Random audio files trigger the moment you enter. A banshee scream, a ghoul call, and then Sithun's voice, the ancient old god, saying, "Death is close, and you will die." Unique eerie music plays in that room that exists nowhere else in the entire game. Players documented this going back to at least 2006, and it has never changed. There are also 2 small skulls sitting in the grass southwest of the house that most players walk past every day without ever noticing. But here's the kicker. Players discovered that standing in the exact center of the children's formation puts you precisely 666 yards from the Elwyn Forest border. Every single time. Developer John Stotts eventually addressed the pentagram claim directly, stating the formation was not meant to be satanic and that the children were simply centered on Cameron. The children themselves are named after real Blizzard dungeon designers, Stotts included. The spooky sounds, he said, were pranks by the exterior level design team aimed at the dungeon department. A customer service rep reportedly told players it was an Easter egg related to the Diablo franchise. Cool. But then explain the 666 yards, and explain why Cameron, the child these 6 orbit every single morning, sometimes says, "Remember Sithun? Good old Sithun." Nobody has. There has been zero official acknowledgement of the 666 yards, the skulls in the grass, or Cameron's Sithun dialogue. They have sat in the most visited zone in WoW's history for 20 years, completely unexplained, while millions of brand new players walk past them on their very first day. Blizzard put Lovecraftian death whispers, a pentagram formation, and a 666 measurement in a children's game starter zone and called it an inside joke, which is either the most committed bit in gaming history or there's something nobody's talking about. But if unseen horrors hidden in plain sight unsettle you, the next one won't help. Because we're going to a murder scene, and the killer left his diary behind. Stalvan Mistmantle. Stalvan Mistmantle is WoW's most disturbing quest chain, and most players walked straight past it without realizing what they were actually reading. The Legend of Stalvan is a 13-part Alliance murder mystery in Duskwood. It starts like a cold case. A woman named Clerk Daltrey sends you to find information about a missing person, Stalvan Mistmantle, a schoolteacher who vanished years ago. You track down witnesses, dig through records, and slowly piece together what happened by collecting fragments of his personal journal scattered across multiple zones. The surface explanation is simple enough. Teacher goes mad, people die, teacher becomes an undead revenant haunting an abandoned manor. WoW has 100 stories like that, but here's where it gets dark, because the journal tells you exactly what kind of madness this was. The first entries are professional. Stalvan documents his new tutoring position with the Flintridge family, noting their son Giles and their elder daughter Tiloa. Then the entries start to shift. He begins documenting Tiloa specifically, her intelligence, her beauty, describing her as on the cusp of womanhood. The obsession builds entry by entry. She places a flower in his open palm, and he writes that his heart felt as though it was trembling within his chest. He watches her in the garden. He documents every interaction. Then Tiloa appears in public holding hands with a suitor. She introduces Stalvan to him casually. "Oh, that's just my tutor, Uncle Stalvan. He's a nice old man." The word old sends him over the edge. His final journal page is bloodstained. The game never tells you what's written on it. The blood is the story. Stalvan butchered Tiloa, her young fiancé, and the entire Flintridge family with an axe, the weapon, Stalvan's Reaper, then retreated to Manor Mistmantle northeast of Darkshire, where darkness consumed him. Caretaker Folsom confirms it plainly. "My father was the caretaker of the estate long before I was. He had to mop the blood up after the massacre." When you finally find Stalvan in that manor and engage him, he still calls out Tiloa's name, 20 years dead, still whispering the name of the girl he murdered. But the detail nobody talks about is this. The name Tiloa is an anagram. Rearrange the letters, and you get Lolita, the title of Vladimir Nabokov's novel about a predatory older man's obsession with a young girl. The Blizzard writers put that in there deliberately and quietly, and for years the community read right past it. There is no dramatic reveal in the quest, no cutscene, no dramatic music sting. You collect journal fragments, read escalating obsession documented in a dead man's own handwriting, find the blood-stained final page, and draw your own conclusions. It is the most understated, most genuinely unsettling piece of storytelling in classic WoW, and it has been sitting in Duskwood since 2004. But Duskwood's horrors are personal, isolated. One man, one family, one manor. What comes next operated on an entirely different scale, because the next secret isn't about what one monster did to one family. It's about what an entire institution did to thousands. And the screaming never stopped. Thaddeus Naxxramas is one of WoW's most celebrated raids. It is also the only raid in the game where you can hear women and children screaming for the entire duration of a boss fight. Thaddeus is a construct boss in the Construct Quarter, a massive Frankenstein abomination, stitched together from flesh and reanimated by Kel'Thuzad's necromancers. That's the surface explanation. A big, ugly monster made of body parts. Standard undead content. Raiders saw him and started doing the math on positioning mechanics. But Commander Eligor Dawnbringer tells you exactly what he is before you ever set foot in that wing. Thaddeus. Built from the flesh of women and children. It is said that their souls are fused together, eternally bound within that foul prison of flesh. Not soldiers, not criminals, not nameless victims, women and children, and their souls are still inside. Here's where it gets impossible to ignore, because the screaming starts the moment you enter the Construct Quarter, and it does not stop. Persistent, loud, unmistakable audio playing on a loop throughout the entire wing while you clear trash toward him. Please stop, please stop, help me, save me, please no. Every raider who cleared Naxxramas heard it. Many of them assumed it was ambient horror atmosphere, generic dungeon sounds. It isn't. Those are the fused souls of women and children, aware inside the monster's body, screaming at anyone close enough to hear them. They know you're there. They are begging you to do something, and Thaddeus's own dialogue confirms it from the inside. When the fight starts, he says, "You are too late. I must obey." Not a threat, a confession. The souls inside are trying to surrender, trying to communicate, being physically forced to fight by the necromantic magic controlling the flesh around them. They are prisoners who can see their rescuers and cannot stop attacking them. When Thaddeus dies, he says 2 words: "Thank you." That's it. 2 words from a collection of fused, tortured souls finally given permission to stop existing. The most disturbing death line in WoW history, delivered with zero fanfare in a raid most players treated as a loot piñata. Kel'Thuzad's necromancers kidnapped women and children, murdered them, stitched their bodies into a single construct, fused their conscious souls inside it, and set it loose in a dungeon. And the only mercy available to those souls was being killed by a group of strangers doing a weekly raid clear. Nobody in the community talked about it while it was current content. Players were too focused on the polarity mechanic. The screaming was just background noise. It took years of retrospective analysis for the full horror of what Blizzard designed to fully register. But Thaddeus is body horror. It is finite, physical, something you can point at and destroy. What comes next cannot be destroyed. It cannot be reasoned with. It has been whispering into the minds of every living thing on Azeroth since before the world had a name, and some of what it whispered turned out to be prophecy. The old gods. C'Thun has been whispering to players since 2006, and some of what he said turned out to be true. The old gods are WoW's answer to Lovecraftian horror. Ancient, imprisoned cosmic entities so fundamentally wrong that the Titans chose to bury them rather than destroy them, because killing them would have shattered the planet. C'Thun came first, at the bottom of the Temple of Ahn'Qiraj. Yogg-Saron followed in Ulduar. They whisper constantly to everyone, and they have been doing it since before recorded history. The entire premise is that sanity is not a resource you get back, and the whispers are personal. C'Thun targets individual players in the raid, not the group. You. Death is close. Your friends will abandon you. You will betray your friends. Your heart will explode. Present tense. Certainties, not threats. He isn't warning you. He's describing what's already happening. But Yogg-Saron is where it gets genuinely disturbing. His fight opens with Sarah, a beautiful Vrykul woman who appears to be helping you. She guides you through Phase 1, offers buffs, seems to be on your side. Then she transforms, screaming, "I am the lucid dream, the monster in your nightmares, the fiend of 1,000 faces. Cower before my true form, and then bow down before the god of death." The fake ally reveal is disturbing enough, but Phase 2 is what makes this fight unlike anything else in WoW. Players enter brain portals to fight inside Yogg-Saron's mind, and inside they witness 3 visions. Historical moments from Warcraft's past. The assassination of King Lane, the creation of the Dragon Soul, the Lich King torturing Bolvar for Dragon. After each vision, Yogg-Saron whispers the truth, that he was behind all of it. He influenced Garona's hand. He corrupted Neltharion's mind. He shaped the Scourge. And then he says, he will learn. No king rules forever. Only death is eternal. Players heard that line in 2009 and filed it away as creepy boss dialogue. Then, in 2010, at Icecrown Citadel's summit, Tyrannus Menethil's ghost cradles his dying son Arthas and says, word for word, "No king rules forever, my son." Yogg-Saron whispered a prophecy a full year before it happened in-game, and almost nobody caught it in real time. The puzzle box of Yogg-Saron makes it worse. It's an archaeology artifact, something you dig up in Cataclysm, and it whispers a different line every time you use it. At the bottom of the ocean, even light must die. In the sleeping city of Nealotha, walk only mad things. Have you had the dream again? A black goat with 7 eyes that watches from the outside. Look around. They will all betray you. Flee screaming into the black forest. It was your fault. It was your fault. That last one loops, just that, over and over. And then there are Il'gynoth's whispers from the Emerald Nightmare in Legion 2016. Players spent months trying to decode them. Some seemed like nonsense. Others were disturbingly specific. The Boy King serves at the Master's table, and when dominated by the jailer in Shadowlands 4 years later, her heart is a crater, and we have filled it. Jaina Theramore, the void that shaped her. At the hour of her 3rd death, she will usher in our coming. Sylvanas, whose arc through 3 expansions the community is still debating. Yogg-Saron's death quote is recorded in his native tongue. Translated, it reads, "The shadow of my corpse will choke this land for all eternity." He wasn't wrong, but the old gods corrupt from a distance. They whisper, they nudge. What comes next is about a man who had every chance to turn back, and chose not to. The culling, Arthas Menethil, is WoW's most iconic villain. He is also the only major character in the game whose fall from grace you personally witness, participate in, and cannot stop. The culling of Stratholme is a Wrath of the Lich King dungeon set inside the Caverns of Time. You travel back to one of the most pivotal moments in Warcraft history and watch it happen in real time. The premise sounds straightforward. Help Prince Arthas defend Stratholme from the Scourge. Clear the city. Stop Mal'Ganis. But that's not what happens. Arthas discovers the truth before the battle even starts. Plagued grain from Anderhall has already been distributed throughout Stratholme. Every citizen who ate it is already infected, already condemned. They don't know yet. They look completely healthy. They are going about their normal lives, entirely unaware that the conversion is already happening inside them. Arthas runs the numbers and arrives at a conclusion. The city has to be purged before Mal'Ganis raises them as an undead army. He orders his soldiers to kill everyone right now, while they're still alive. Uther refuses. The exact exchange is worth quoting in full, because every word of it matters. This entire city must be purged. How can you even consider that? There's got to be some other way. Damn it, Uther, as your future king, I order you to purge this city. You are not my king yet, boy. Nor would I obey that command if you were. Jaina walks away without a word. And then you follow Arthas into the city and you do it with him. Citizens scream as the soldiers enter. Mercy, my lord. You're supposed to be our prince. The king's men are attacking. Run for your lives. You kill them. The game requires it. There is no alternate path, no dialogue option, no way to register dissent. The caverns of time mandate that history plays out exactly as it did. You are there to make sure it does. Here's where it gets genuinely complicated. Because Arthas was not wrong about the facts. The plague was real. The conversion was inevitable. Mal'Ganis would have raised every one of those citizens within hours. A city of undead soldiers at the Scourge's disposal would have been catastrophic. Every strategic argument Arthas makes holds up under scrutiny, but the people begging for mercy were still alive when he gave the order. Uther's final line to Arthas as he leaves, "You've just crossed a terrible threshold, Arthas," is the most precise diagnosis in WoW's history. Not a condemnation, not a declaration of war, just a quiet acknowledgement that something irreversible just happened to a person. The community has been debating whether Arthas was right for 20 years and has never reached consensus. That is not an accident. Blizzard built the argument to be genuinely unresolvable. One original detail was cut before release. Children were meant to emerge from buildings as killable objectives during the purge. Blizzard removed it. Even they had a line. The culling is moral horror, not body horror. It doesn't show you something disgusting. It makes you do something unforgivable, and then presents reasonable arguments for why you had no choice. And the man who gave that order went on to do far worse. Because what fear and desperation started, something much darker finished. The sludge fields. Blizzard spent the entire opening of Hillsbrad Foothills making you laugh. Then they showed you a concentration camp. The Cataclysm revamp of Hillsbrad is one of WoW's most celebrated zone redesigns. It's horde only. It's narrated by Kingslayer Orcus, and it opens with a quest called Welcome to the Machine, where you literally become the quest giver, handing out tasks to satirical NPCs, including a blood elf named Johnny Awesome, who is wearing full heirloom gear and riding a celestial steed. It is genuinely funny. Players loved it. That humor is a setup. Blizzard used it deliberately, because once you stop laughing, you are sent to the sludge fields. The sludge fields sit where Hillsbrad's farmland used to be. Pastoral, green. Families lived here. Warden Stillwater explains what it is now in the most bureaucratic language imaginable. These glorious fields weren't always here. Only through determination and the strength of will did we turn the decrepit human farms into Lord Aeron's largest and most productive sludge and mushroom plantation. The language of productivity reports layered over something the player can see with their own eyes is atrocity tourism. Blizzard knew exactly what they were building. And then comes the quest that nobody talks about. It's called Do the Right Thing. The quest giver is a shovel, literally a shovel stuck in the ground. Its description reads, "You have come upon a horrific scene. Someone or something has buried all of the humans up to their necks in a manner consistent with planting. The ghouls, which are seemingly tending the fields of human seedlings, periodically jump to the nearest human and devour its head. Human seedlings." That is the exact in-game terminology. Living people buried neck-deep in plague sludge, being farmed. You receive the Shovel of Mercy. The game gives you a choice. Rescue the human seedlings or bash their heads in. Choosing violence triggers a debuff called Head Asplode and a message that reads, "You might want to rethink your definition of right." Choosing rescue prompts the survivors to say, "Should you ever be buried neck deep in a field of feces and urine, I will be sure to lend you a hand." The rescued humans make jokes. They are in shock. That's the only coherent explanation. Master Apothecary Leiden confirms the full scope from inside his cage. This place is no farm. Stillwater has been experimenting on the humans of Hillsbrad. These monstrosities here are all his creations. The risen undead shuffling through the fields are Hillsbrad farmers, people who had homes here. The quest for science. sends you to collect samples from their reanimated corpses. South Shore, once a thriving Alliance port town, one of the most recognizable locations in classic WoW, is a toxic plague wasteland on the other side of the zone. There is nobody left to save. The tonal architecture here is what makes this so disturbing. Comedy, then atrocity. Bureaucratic language describing slave labor and human experimentation. A mercy mechanic that makes you personally choose whether to rescue or execute helpless buried people. Blizzard wrapped Holocaust-adjacent imagery in a quest chain with a shovel for a quest giver, and then never drew attention to it. The genius and the horror are inseparable, but everything we've covered so far, the torture chambers, the murder mysteries, the monsters, the experiments, happened in corners, hidden rooms, forgotten zones, side quests. What comes last didn't hide at all. It happened at the center of WoW's entire story, to a child who had been waiting in the ruins for years, and it is the only entry on this list that will make you feel genuinely sad. Pamela Redpath. Pamela Redpath is a ghost child standing alone in the ruins of Darrowshire. She doesn't know she's dead. She has been waiting there, in a plague wasteland, for her father to come home, since 2004. The Eastern Plaguelands are WoW's most desolate zone, corrupted earth, skeletal trees, zero living NPCs for miles. It is the visual endpoint of everything the Scourge touched, a landscape that used to be farmland and villages and is now just rot. Players who leveled through it in Classic remember the specific weight of it. Not scary, just profoundly, quietly wrong. Pamela stands in the ruins of her old house, and she talks to you like nothing happened. My Auntie Marlene told me to stay here in our house because my father had to go and fight. My father's the bravest man in the whole world, but I've been here for a long time, and he hasn't come for me. Sometimes bad people come and whisper to me, and I want my dad to make them go away, but he's not here. And sometimes when it gets dark, I want to play with my doll, but I can't because I left it in town. Bad people whispering to her. In the dark, she is a dead child alone in a plague wasteland being whispered at by undead, and her only frame of reference for any of it is that she wants her dad. The quest chain sends you to find her lost doll, scattered in pieces through the ruins, and approaching each piece summons hostile ghosts. Then you work with Chromie and her uncle Carlin Redpath to reenact the Battle of Darrowshire itself, slowly uncovering what actually happened the night the town fell. The answer is worse than you expect. Pamela's father, Captain Joseph Redpath, led the town's defense. He was corrupted mid-battle by the Death Knight Marduk the Black, killed and raised as Redpath the Corrupted, a monster that fought against the very people he was trying to protect. Players have to defeat him. You kill Pamela's father to free his soul. Then you watch what happens next. Joseph's spirit walks to the house where his daughter has been standing alone for years. Pamela, are you there, honey? Daddy, Daddy, you're back. Let's go play. No. Tell me a story. No. Let's go pick flowers and play tea time. I found my dolly, did I tell you? I missed you too, honey, and I'm finally home. They fade away together. The quest reward is a sweet tea, because Pamela made tea for her hero. But here is the detail that makes this entry genuinely singular. In the Wrath of the Lich King dungeon, the Culling of Stratholme, the same dungeon from earlier in this video, there is a young girl in the streets of Stratholme before the Purge. She is playing with dolls. She has no quest marker, no special dialogue. She is just a child living her life in the last few hours before everything ends. Her name is Pamela Redpath. Players who completed her classic quest chain recognized her instantly. They knew exactly what was coming. They knew the plague was already in the grain. They knew the soldiers were about to arrive. They knew this little girl playing with dolls in the street was going to end up alone in a ruined wasteland for 20 years, being whispered at in the dark, asking strangers where her father went. Blizzard never flagged it. No achievement, no extra dialogue, just a name, sitting in the background of a dungeon, waiting for someone who remembered. 20 years of WoW, 8 entries, hidden torture chambers, occult children, a predator's diary, screaming fused souls, cosmic entities whispering prophecies, a mass execution of begging civilians, human beings farmed neck-deep in plague sludge. All of it real. All of it in the same game where you're also doing daily quests for a walrus man and arguing about talent builds. That contrast is WoW. It always has been. The most disturbing secrets in this game aren't disturbing because Blizzard tried to make a horror game. They're disturbing because they're buried inside something enormous and colorful and 20 years old, and most of them are still just sitting there, waiting for someone to look. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.